I see more people that get excited about a concept and an idea, and they attempt to do a first couple things. Maybe they do a Google AdWords campaign, or they talk to us, or they do something. And then all of a sudden they hit an obstacle, right? Or something's doesn't just fall into place for them. And then they go, oh, I'm going to quit, and throw their whole entire business out the window.
Their business, their dreams,
their experience, their lifestyle, everything out the window. And done. And I sat there in that experience, and I'm thinking of all the stuff, all the things that I have to go through, all the push-ups and all the junk. And I'm like, I can't do this. I don't have what it takes. Maybe they're right. Maybe I can't do this. Maybe. And so I decided to quit.
Hey everybody, thank you for joining us for today's episode of Real Estate Disruptors. Today we got Sean Terry with Flip to Freedom. If you don't know Sean, I don't know what to tell you. He's another big guy inside the Phoenix market, wholesaling nationwide. And today Sean's talking about all the times that he's wanted to quit. Now, I'm on a mission to create 100 millionaires. You guys know the information here alone is enough to help you become a millionaire in the next 5 to 7 years. If you'll take consistent action, you will become one. And we also know the fastest way to become a millionaire is to get really good at sales. Our sales community has been around for just a few months, and our community members are already closing more sales. If you want to join a community of sales assassins, go to salesdisruptors.com. And we're hiring. So, we're looking for acquisitions, dispositions, anywhere inside our company. Go to disruptors.com/hiring if you're interested in working with us. And guys, if you get value today, please hit that subscribe button. That way we can all grow together. You ready?
I'm ready.
All right.
First off, I just got to give a plug to Steve. For what you've done in the community, for your shows that you've done. And he actually recently, a couple months ago, came out and spoke at my mastermind there and talked about sales and what to say. And you answered questions, you overcame objections. And it was one of the it was so well orchestrated on how you laid out on actually closing a seller without asking for the sale, right?
Yeah.
To actually, instead of actually closing, they just came to the conclusion like, okay, I just got to sell to this guy. And he did it. So if you guys never have actually seen what he does when it comes from the sales disruptor side, I highly recommend it. It's absolutely amazing. If you're struggling to get contracts, this is something you must have. So I just want to give you a shameless plug on that because it's that good. So it's awesome.
Thank you so much. We recorded, part of it. And we actually uploaded it into our community. And there's this one part that I was like, who's that screaming and laughing so loud? It's like,
is that me?
It was you.
I'm loud, I know. It's like, you just hear our household, man. Our household's loud. We got 2 crazy dogs. It's nuts. So.
Well, it was the part about, if you remember, they're like, well, how do you deal with open door? Do you remember what I said about open door?
Yeah.
Right?
Wait, how'd you do it? Do it again.
It was like, oh, open door. You're considering working with them. And all those class action lawsuits, those don't concern you whatsoever.
I love the one with Zillow.
Yeah.
He goes, well, my Zillow property says it's worth X. And you go, when was the last time Zillow was in your house? Right? And I could just see their face on the other side of the phone going, good question. you know?
No, Zillow's not coming into your house.
Yeah, I know. Zillow's not.
So we talked about, as this title show, is Sean Terry really quitting? Now, there's been multiple instances where quitting has been a serious consideration.
Yes.
So let's start with the first major one.
Yeah. So, So just a reference is that, when you're an entrepreneur, and we're talking about being an entrepreneur, there are times when you will come up against a wall when you have no idea what to do, right?
Yeah.
You're stuck. And so we're gonna talk about a couple different times, and the most recent one actually was back in 2019, a story you absolutely have to hear, and we'll talk about that here in a second. But so the first one was your first deal. So some people right now watching, and they're brand new, they've never got a deal, and they've watched a couple interviews, and they see the potential of what could happen in this business. So I bought a course at 33 years old. I was living month to month at the time, and the course was $500. I had to use my wife's first Premier credit card of $250, and my first Premier credit card starter cards at $250. And I bought this course.
You guys were maxing out your credit cards.
Yeah, we were maxing out to buy this course, and it's interesting because I was working as in pool and landscape business, and it was a Saturday afternoon. I was driving to an appointment, a pool and landscape appointment, and I heard this guy on the radio talk about how you could, flip houses with no cash or credit or anything like that. And I was like, what a scam. You can't do that. There's no way. And these guys are making $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 checks. I'm like, that's a joke. So I actually turned the channel. I was like, well, who's going to listen to that? But now I know is like, I have that intuition, that thing inside. It's God kind of tugging you to flip the channel. So I flipped the channel back and I continued to listen to what he said. And he talked about this concept of wholesaling, where you get a property under contract for a price and you find a buyer for a higher price and you can make the spread. And I was like, I never heard that before. So I had an epiphany of that new idea, and that new idea of what you could do. So I got excited. I convinced my wife to give me her $250 credit card, maxed out my credit card, $500, bought the course, couldn't wait to get it. I got the course and it came in 2 big like black boxes, right? So I opened up the boxes and there are all these VHS tapes. So do you know what VHS is?
Yes, I know.
Yeah, so some of the all the millennials on there are like, what the heck are VHS, right? So I had VHS and had a little binder. And I took the VHS out, I put in my VHS, and I sat there and I'm like at the edge of my chair and I'm ready to take notes. And it comes on in black and white, right? And this is in 2003, right? So this is 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So 2003, it comes on in black and white. And this guy has a big old cowboy hat on. He's talking in this southern drawl, and the cowboy, he has like those bell bottoms, chaps on. And he's in front of this board, and he's talking about you can knock on pre-foreclosure doors, and you can have them sell your house, and like Eddie Speed, Eddie Speed, right? He has that southern drawl, right? So anyways, I'm like, what? And I started looking. He recorded these shows back in 1992, 93, and he did it with this like VHS tape that his like buddy held. And apparently these course was sitting in his garage. So that's all I had, right? We didn't have Zillow at the time. We didn't have any comps. We didn't have GPS. So
skip tracing.
So what he did is he said, buy a list of pre-foreclosures, drive around and knock on their doors. That's the whole premise of the course. And pre-foreclosures are properties that are about to go in foreclosure. And I was like, okay. So that was the whole course. So I found a list, and from Net Value Central, if you remember them, right? Found a list, and I got the list, and I like I said, you didn't have GPS, you didn't have a car with GPS. So what do? So I went to MapQuest. Remember MapQuest?
Oh, I remember MapQuest.
Went on MapQuest and I printed out the address, and then I printed out the address to the next house and the address to the next house. And I basically lined them all together so I could drive from one house, and I was following this. And I hit about, and at the time I was still doing pools and landscaping. So around my job, I was knocking on these pre-foreclosure doors. The first house I went to, now think about this. And here's the thing. Anytime you do something new, you want to have validation from other people. So if you and I are friends, you go, hey, I got this great idea. I'm going to flip some houses. So I went to my father-in-law, and he said, I'm all excited, animated. I said, oh my gosh, I'm going to make millions. I'm going to get rich.
It's going to change my life. Yeah.
It's going to change my life. You get this property under contract and you sell for a higher price, you can make a ton of money. And I'm all excited. He goes, you can't sell a house you don't own. Who told you could sell a house you don't own? You can't do that. That's illegal, right? So I'm like, oh crap, right? I didn't know that, right? And he goes, but listen, talk to my realtor friend. He's been doing it for 30 years. He's an awesome guy, friend of the family. Talk to him. So I called the realtor friend, and I asked him. I said, hey, I got this thing and and a contract and wholesaling and this, and he said, yeah, you actually can do it, but you'll never find a deal because all those are taken by professionals, right? They have professional teams and big businesses, and they go after these houses, and you'll never ever find a deal. So that was my out of the gate, of these guys. So you know how it's like you have a balloon and you're all like blown up, like I'm gonna get, and then all of a sudden you just kind of deflate.
Well, you have typically you have people that are cheering you on.
Yeah.
You already have people who are like, maybe it's not a good idea.
Yeah.
Maybe you shouldn't try this balloon, like you said.
It just collapsed, and I'm like, oh. So I was partially deflated, And now I'm going out knocking on these pre-foreclosure doors. So the first door I go to, I kind of park down the street and I'm kind of casing the place. And, it's May of 2003, so it's kind of hot out. So I kind of go by the house and I have my little clipboard. I have the idea of what I'm going to say, and now guys, I'm 33. I have a daughter. I'm married. I'm a prior U.S. Marine, right? So you think I got this big, tough Marine guy that's going to go up to the house. Hey, how you doing? You want to sell your house? It wasn't like that. So I go up to the house and they had this gigantic truck that wasn't parked in the driveway. It was parked like across the front of
in the grass.
In the grass, right? So I kind of walk around the truck and he had the screen door open. The screen door, and then the door was open and I knock on it and the screen door kind of shakes like that. And I'm sitting there kind of stand back with my clipboard. I'm like, hi, ready to do my pitch. First house ever. And this dude about, I'm 6'1", you're pretty tall too. This guy was about 6'7", 6'8", and he had skin. He was had skin head shaved, and he had this tank top on while his hair sticking out. He had gruffy shave and he was kind of sweating. He looked pissed. And he comes behind, and this shadow comes behind the screen. And I'm like, oh crap. And he opens his door and he goes, what do you want? And I'm like, and literally, I've never felt more stupid because nothing came out of my mouth. I was like, and I was like tripping over my tongue. I didn't know what to say. And I literally turned around and hightailed it like a dog, with his tail between his legs, back to my car, sped walk back to my car. I sat in my car and I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, part of doing something, and what makes you quit. And this is what happens in in boot camp, and also what they do with SEAL team and stuff. They tell you all the things in the future that you have to go through to get to the end result, right?
Yeah.
So they go, listen, tomorrow we got to run 8 miles, then we're going to go do this, and then we're going to go do that, and then we're going to do this. So it tires you out in your brain of all the things you have to do. So I sat there in the car. It's May of 2003, living month to month, doing the stupid pool and landscape thing. I go knock on my first door, and I'm thinking, how many doors do I have to knock on? How many people do I have to talk to? How many drive around? And I'm at my first house, right? And I just remember, and I sat there and I was like, I can't do this.
Yeah.
I can't do it. So, if you're brand new and you might have a fan base where people are, encouraging you, or you might not, or you might be just doing this yourself. You're going to be at a point in time where I sat there and I was like, I can't do this. And I didn't think I had the ability. I didn't think I had what it took. I didn't think I had the wherewithal to kind of do this real estate thing. And I sat there and I quit right there before I even got started.
Yeah.
Now, I've been in the teaching space since 2010. I think you have too, pretty close.
Shortly thereafter, maybe 18, yeah.
Yeah, a long time, right?
Yeah.
So you've been a long time, I've been a long time. And I see more people that get excited about a concept and an idea, and they attempt to do a first couple things. Maybe they do a Google AdWords campaign, or they talk to us, or they do something. And then all of a sudden they hit an obstacle, right? Or something's doesn't just fall into place for them. And then they go, oh, I'm going to quit, and throw their whole entire business out the window.
Their business, their dreams,
their experience, their lifestyle, everything out the window, and done. And I sat there in that experience, and I'm thinking of all the stuff, all the things that I have to go through, all the push-ups and all the junk. And I'm like, I can't do this. I don't have what it takes. Maybe they're right. Maybe I can't do this. Maybe. And so I decided to quit. And I was like, I'll just go back to the pool thing, and I'll just, couldn't do that. And so that was the first time I decided to quit. And what got me over the edge was we had cassette tapes, right? And I had my car, and I had like a little Nissan Murano, and I put in I had a cassette tape plan. So when I turned on the car, after I was kind of sitting there contemplating quitting, right at that time I was listening to Think and Grow Rich. So first off, you gotta inundate your mind with positive success and devour all of his shows, all the information you can. And what that will do is it will prime your mind for when things happen like this. You'll have the ability and the armor to go through it. So I listened to that, and at the right point in time, this is another God thing, right point in time, is that there was Winston Churchill, and Napoleon Hill was telling a story about Winston Churchill, and Winston Churchill has the famous saying of never, ever, 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 ever quit. Mm-hmm. And he emphasizes ever, ever, ever quit. And he was telling that story in such a way that made such an impact that right then and there, I made a resolution with myself that I don't care how many doors I have to knock on. I don't care if I have to wake up early and I have to go to bed late. I don't care if I have to work weekends. I don't care how many no's I get. I don't care what pain I have to go through. I am going to do this, and I'm going to do it until I get my first deal. And I did that. And I didn't look at every door I knock and take everything personally. I looked at a group of doors, right? So I'll say, I'm going to knock on 100 doors, and I'm going to see kind of what happens after that. Yeah. So I just went out and I just started knocking on it. Probably around 100 doors, and I finally found a guy that was willing to sell. It wasn't easy. I didn't even have a contract to sign. I had to go to Staples to go get a contract. Yeah. I didn't have comps. I didn't have apps or anything like that. I had to call this realtor friend and say, what do you think it's worth? And I got the property under contract and I sold it. And that's another whole story in itself. But I made $11,008 in May of 2003. That was my first check. And I can tell you, don't sleep until you get your first check. Don't stop until you get your first check. Don't hesitate. Don't just put your head down and focus on getting that first check, because that is validation. And, we're doing the vlog in there and we're talking to your team in there. We're talking, and, because I was a Marine and I had, people around me that said, you making any money yet? You're doing it yet? Is it happening yet? And I'm grinding every single day, knocking on doors. So when you get that first check, it's validation. It's almost like a shut up check. So I'm just shut up. It's like, I did it, and it's a proof of concept, and it's something that is your first stepping stone to the rest of your life.
It gives you conviction.
Gives you conviction.
Right. One area is like, I think I can do this. One is, I know I can do this.
Yeah.
Right.
You can do it. You've done it. You've proven it works. Now you've just got to rinse and repeat. So you might be in a situation right now and you're watching this and you haven't got your first check yet. I want you to make a commitment to yourself. I want to look yourself in the mirror and say, I am not going to quit, and I'm going to do whatever it takes legally, ethically, morally until I get my first check. If you make that type of resolution, then an obstacle, we all have obstacles.
Oh, yeah.
You have obstacles. One thing we learned in the Marine Corps is obstacle is something to be overcome. It's not something to stop you. So obstacles could be money issues. Obstacles could be lead issues. It could be hiring issues. It could be all sorts of things, right? So obstacles, are just something to be overcome. And in the Marine Corps, they say you either go over the obstacle, you dig under the obstacle, you go around the obstacle, or you just blow through it, right? Stick grenades on it and blow it up. So if you look at obstacles like that as something that you have to overcome, then it is just part of the journey. It creates your story, because if you just woke up and you watched Real Estate Disruptors and you Steve here and you said, I'm going to sign up for this course, and you ran a couple ads and talked to a couple people and talked to some for sale owners and you got a deal and you sold it and you made 50 grand and this is the easiest thing ever, right? That's not a story. That's no story. You have to go through the struggle and put yourself up against the wall where you don't think you can do it, and then you do it. You know what that does for your confidence? It's absolutely, absolutely amazing to go on and move on to the next.
And I think there's a few different things here, right? So first, like Sean Terry, right? Like you're super well known, but you had moments of weakness, moments of doubt.
Yeah.
Right. So like we all go through it. The second thing, you're talking about the Marine Corps, like they don't just tell you go do this. You have people around you telling you, by the way, we're going to go do this and it's going to suck.
Yeah.
Here's where it's going to suck.
Yeah.
Here's where it's going to be painful. You're going to want to quit here. They'll tell you all of this.
Yeah.
And then you go through it. It's like, oh, well, Sean did tell me.
Yeah.
It was going to suck right here.
Yeah.
Right. And that if you power through this, you'll be okay.
Yeah.
And the reason we're talking about this is that a lot of people are seeing Instagram or Facebook ads or YouTube ads like, oh, this is going to be so easy. You can get whatever exotic sports car you want, all the watches you want, travel the world, right? Like they're promising all these things. We're saying here, those things are achievable, but there's going to be a lot of suck along the way.
Yeah, there's that whole journey to get from point A to point B that they're leaving out of the Instagram post. You know what I mean? It's like they're showing the end result or even a portion of the end result, but they're leaving out that time that they're alone. It's 5 o'clock in the morning and they're getting up and they're tired and they don't know what to do today because what's the next step? And they don't have business and they don't have revenue coming in and you don't have a team and it's just you, yourself, and you creating income. Right? You don't have a guaranteed check coming in. You're not getting, you're done with your 9 to 5. And now you have to create money by getting a property under contract and finding that buyer and doing it. And that's a scary thing. It's a scary thing to do, but it's also liberating to know, because once you figure this out, right, and you know how to do it, you literally can, make money at will, meaning even no matter what happens in the world, right? You would know what a motivated seller is. You could talk to a motivated seller. You could get a property under contract and you could sell it for a higher price, right? And you could close a deal because you have a skill that is a money producing skill, even if all this goes away, right? Which is a powerful thing. A job is something to where now you're relying on somebody else to give you a paycheck, every 2 weeks, right? And they have the control and the power over you. And more than the cars and the boats and the toys and the lifestyle, all the stuff is the freedom to control what you do is probably the most thing you want to strive for. That is, for me, is the biggest thing. You got kids too,
Something that they can't take away.
Yeah, something they can't take away.
No matter what happens, they can't take that away.
Yeah, you can't take it away. You can't take away that one skill and be able to do that. So,
that was the first time you almost quit.
That was the first time. Yeah, I know I had that resolution. I got my first deal, and then I went to, then I put my head down and I went to work, and so that was 2003. 2004 came along, and I basically, I learned how to market, right? And I'll tell a quick story because there's a guy here local. And I call him the Godfather of real estate. I won't say his name or anything like that, but he's a guy, kind of like a little mentor. When I first started, I'd call him up. His name's Ron. If he's watching, he knows who he is. But I called him up, and I remember I thought it was such big stuff because I was sending 5,000 postcards a month. Right? I'm like, I'm sending 5,000. You know how in your mind, I went from sending 200 or 300 a week to 800-900 a week to like 1,000 a week, and I'm like, killing it, man. 1,000 mails.
Big freaking deal.
Big freaking deal, right? I thought it was a big freaking deal. So I call the Godfather Ron up, and I talked to him, and he goes, I said, so hey, I sent 5,000 postcards this month. Man, what are you doing, right? Trying to show him up, right? And he goes, well, I just dropped 125,000 postcards, and I'm like. I couldn't fathom. It was the first time I was like, what?
Yeah.
And I go, who's answering the phone? He goes, me. They said they're coming to my cell phone, right? I'm like, what? So right after that, I was like, okay, I'm sending 100,000 postcards.
Challenge accepted.
So I'm like, and that was a stretch for me. That's why, if he offers like some sort of training or mastermind or something, and you can surround yourself with people that are playing at a bigger level. They stretch your mind to do bigger things. You're like, wow, I never thought about that. Maybe I should try it. And you never would have done that on your own. I never would have went from 5,000 to 100,000 and at one time ever if it wasn't being surrounding myself with someone that's playing at a bigger game. So I went out and I dropped 100,000 units. I had a girl named Denise who was answering the phone. Phone melted with people coming in, with calls and stuff. But that's the first month in my entire career that we did over $100,000 for the month.
Yeah.
And that's when I correlated marketing with revenue, that the correlation between marketing and revenue is that close.
Oh, yeah.
That, your marketing and understanding that marketing, the leads you get is a direct relation to your income in your revenue. So that really took off. So basically during that time, we were mailing pre-foreclosures because that was kind of my niche. And 2003, 2004. And then what we did is we bought properties subject to the existing loan and pre-foreclosures. So the sellers in pre-foreclosure, we pay them $3,000 to $5,000 to move. We would reinstate the loan for $10,000 to $15,000. They would move out of the house. We'd take over the property. We cleaned it up, and then we'd lease option the property to other buyers. Right. So I built a portfolio of 120 properties in later 2004. Actually, in all of 2004 and early 2005. We had 120 properties, and I was hustling. I was working, it was me and a partner at the time, and I was working literally 7 days a week, hustling. And because the leads were coming in, we were meeting sellers. They wanted to, get rid of their houses, and we were just structuring these deals, all these seller finance deals. And we had lease optioned. We structured the lease options in a way where they were a strike price, right? Lease with option to purchase. So it was a lease, so we had cash flow, and the purchase option, purchase contract that was done with it was a strike price, say $250, and or appraisal, whichever's higher, right? So now what happened in 2005 is very similar to what happened in 2022, or actually 2021, where the market went parabolic because the Federal Reserve poured so much money into the market. So the market in 2005 went crazy, and what happened? We had low inventory. We had multiple offers on houses. Home builders would open up. They had lotteries on houses. They had, houses were getting bid up. Part of the time on there, they would do escalation clauses on the offer. So you get an offer and it would escalate to a certain price. And all that happened exactly the same in 2005 or 2005, exactly like it did in 2021. Isn't that funny? And I remember they were doing escalation clauses like, oh my gosh, that's back, crazy. Home builders are doing lotteries. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's back, crazy. So we built this big portfolio, sold them all in May of 2005 to November of 2005 to a group out of California that literally bought all of our properties. And they bought them in basically tranches of like 50 houses at a time. And I made so much money in such a short period of time because they were buying at 120% of value. You know what I mean? And we're buying below market and selling at 120% of value. And they're buying these package deals. We had tenants in them. They had lease options with appraisal, whatever's higher. So they're buying these tranches of these properties. And so we literally sold them all, but just a handful, a couple of them, and made millions and millions of dollars in a short period of time. So I'm sitting on this money. I'm like, and I didn't know about quantitative easing. I didn't know about quantitative tightening. I didn't know about how to look at, permits being pulled from home builders as a leading indicator for the real estate market. I didn't know about home starts as a leading indicator for the real estate market. I didn't know to look at inventory, what that looks like, mortgage applications. I didn't look at the affordability index. I didn't look at all these indicators that we have today and we had back then to determine where we are in the market to be risk on or to be risk off, right? So me, Marine, just do real estate, right? I was risk on, at all times. So my daughter at the time danced, and there was a dance dad that was there. I won't say his names or anything like that, but really good guy. We became friends, and he's like, we got to do land. They're buying land and they're entitling it and they're turning around and selling it. And he's like, we got to buy land. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, of course.
Right. So I took the energy that we took from like getting 120 houses
that you made a lot of money on.
Yeah, made a lot of money on. And I was sitting on millions of dollars in the bank. And then I put all that energy into land acquisition, started a company, land acquisition and entitlement. So we're going to buy land. bring it through the zoning process, and title and sell it to builders, right? So we started buying lots to the tune of, I bought, 20 acres up by the Glendale Arena up here, right by the stadium, and another 10 acres over by right behind Midwestern University. We bought these other parcels to about $30 million worth of land as home starts are going down, as building permits are going down, as inventories increasing. I'm buying these lands and they're putting them through the entitlement process, spending hundreds of thousands of dollars for civil engineers, to meeting with the vice mayor, to doing. So I switched from wholesaling to now I was meeting with these big attorneys and doing all this type of stuff. So then I find myself that the market now it's 2006 and 2007. And I'm sitting on this land with a couple partners. I had this one property that was right down the street here, and we assembled as it was 28 acres. And we basically did a plat engineer of 166 rear entry lots on it that we sold to Montalbano Homes. Montalbano Homes was a huge builder back in the day, and they bought it for $12 million. We were in it for $2.5 million, right? So they literally bought it. They were $250,000 they had. And they had a certain due diligence time frame. They go non-refundable with $250,000, and then they were going to close. I was in Disneyland, and I got the call from Teresa, which was from Stewart Title, our title rep, and she said they pulled out. They pulled out because of the market, and that was the first time I really felt an impact of the market. And I was literally about 30 days away from getting like another $3 to $4 million payday on this dirt that we acquired and done. That was the chip that fell, right? And it became really difficult. From that point, the market literally eroded from there. The bad news came out, foreclosures happened, and I spent most of 2007 negotiating with our lenders on trying to, and now the cool thing is I had one personal guarantee for $4 million. The rest of them were non-asset. So we gave those properties back to the lenders, including the $400,000 in this deal, $500,000, $700,000 in this deal. We gave the properties back. And I had this one deal with a personal guarantee, right? So now I had to negotiate. He let us out of the personal guarantee. And gave him back the property and helped him through the process and whatever. I still know him today. He's a good guy, the lender. And essentially, I found myself in 2008. Market crashed. I'm not doing wholesaling. I'm getting away from my morning ritual. I'm drinking too much. I'm overweight. I'm kind of lost on the wholesaling thing, the core thing that I got away from. I got too big for my britches. I wasn't praying. I wasn't doing the things I know I had to do. And I remember, it was crazy. I don't think I've ever told this story, but my wife was a realtor at the time, and she saved up probably about $200,000 at the time. And we were in the process of doing this huge house remodel, right? Because I was expecting to get this $1 million payday from this land and all this stuff and do this house. So half of our house was basically off to the open, right? And we ran out of money. So I have my house. So I got my kids. I have two daughters at this time, my wife. I'm dealing with these guys. I have no business going on. I have no deals going on. I'm literally, now we gave these properties back. I'm literally out of cash, and we have literally no on the side of my house. We have basically plastic to the open.
Yeah.
And I'm like, holy crap, what do I do? So my father-in-law gave me a book called The 4 Spiritual Laws of Prosperity. And the first law talks about tithing. Now, I'm sure probably no one's ever talked about tithing on the show ever, so I'm probably the first guy. But it talked about tithing is giving, in the Bible, it talks about giving a tenth of your income. But I didn't have any income. So I remember I went to, my wife said, hey, you go to the store and get something. And I remember I go to the store, And I'm coming out the store, and there's this man and his wife and his daughter who were sitting out begging for something. And I literally give him my last $20 bill. And I was like, I gave him my $20 bill. And at that point, I remember I'm sitting there broken. I've been in real estate. I didn't understand what was happening. I didn't understand about the market. And I'm sitting there, and I'm lost. And I'm like, what am I going to do? So from that point, I committed to giving 10% of any dime that comes in my family. That's one thing I did. I started getting up early. I cut the drinking. I started to get myself back in shape. And I literally started from scratch as a real estate wholesaler. Mm-hmm. And I hand wrote letters, because I couldn't afford marketing, from my kitchen table, 25 a night. I took a yellow pad of paper, and I hand wrote letters to the pre-foreclosure. I got that little $100 cost me for a pre-foreclosure mm-hmm. list. And I literally hand wrote letters, right? And at the time, listen to this, because all the land, I was going through an IRS audit. And because we had so many LLCs and so many properties and stuff like that and so many things, I had a stack of bank statements, and they were checking every single deposit. Now, that's one thing, my taxes are clean, right? So I had everything. The IRS is screwed, but the taxes are clean, right? So I went through, and I was in the middle of this audit. And remember, my house is open, and I'm just trying to we ran out of money for the contractor. So I'm stuck, right? So I'm in the middle of this audit. I go meet with this audit lady that's doing this thing, and she says, we've closed the file. You're good, right? And about 3 or 4 days later, a $96,000 check shows up in the mail, completely unbeknownst, right? Unexpected, because and she didn't tell me this either. I paid too much taxes. Oh, actually, the income that was reported. Mm-hmm. So when they audited me, they found out I paid too much, and they sent me a check for $96,000.
Fantastic audit.
It was like, you never want to get audited, number one. Number two, if you do get audited, make sure they give you money, which is rare. So first off, it's a rarity, and that ever happened. But we had literally the perfect amount of money to finish the rest of our house. We got that completed and done. And it was the first sign of brightness at the end. I saw a little hint of light at the end of the tunnel, because things started to I felt like turn around. I sent some letters. I got a deal, that came in, a $4,000 or $5,000 deal, and I got another deal. And from that point, and that was 2008, 2009. I just started building. And at the time, we borrowed money from family and friends and stuff to do these deals. So I spent the better part of probably 3 or 4 years paying them back, to make good on.
You're able to pay everyone back?
Yeah, pay them back. So that was good. Never filed bankruptcy, did anything like that. That was all good. But I had to literally unwind myself out of this mess that I got myself in, because I didn't know what I didn't know, right? I didn't know. That's why I'm really passionate today of talking about, the market and what's happening, just talking about the indicators that I wish I would have known. And then someone, their own intelligence can make their own decision, right, on what they want to do.
Before we get into all that, I want to do just two different things here. First, talk about the emotions, right? Like, what would, how long you were sitting through that? What were the thoughts that were going through it? Because look, you not only had a lot of success, like it's one thing to never experience success. It's another thing to experience massive success and then get brought down to earth. At least a dozen times in my career, I was like, oh, I finally got it figured out.
Yeah, right. Never.
Right. You never do. Right. So talk about like that crash landing and like the emotions that you went through.
I'll talk about the low point. So the low point of that whole thing is my house is open. I remember I'm overweight. I'm drinking.
What's overweight for you?
Overweight. So I'm about 205 right now. So I was about 240, 250. So I had a gut on me. My face was all chunky,
We're gonna have to find some old pictures.
Yeah, I know. I'm gonna find some old pictures. But I just, it's like when you drink a lot, you're just kind of get, kind of drawn and stuff. And so That was the bad thing. I wasn't waking up early. I wasn't doing my morning ritual. And I was completely disconnected, sleeping in, just in a bad state.
Not wanting to get up.
Not wanting to get up. Every time I get up, I have to put out some sort of fire or deal with some sort of problem.
So there's like a little bit of
denial type of just almost like avoidance.
Yeah, avoidance. Like you're resigned. Like if I get up, what am I getting up to?
Yeah. And it was like more crap, just like up again, more crap. So the low point was Labor Day, right? Which is coming up Monday, right? Yeah, Monday. So Labor Day, it was Labor Day, 2008. So do you remember what happened in 2008?
I mean, was that right around Lehman Brothers?
It was right around Lehman Brothers, July of 2008. It happened in Lehman Brothers, right? So TARP came out, $1 trillion bailout. Every morning I'd wake up and I'd look at the real estate section looking for signs of hope, right? Trying to look for some sort of signs or something. So what I did was, it was Labor Day. I was sleeping in and I get this knock on the door, right? And I'm like, oh, throwing my hat, have my boxers on, and we didn't have Discord back then. And throw on my hat. And I go to the door, and there's like this thug looking guy there, right? He has some tattoos on. September, it's hot out, and he goes, "I'm here for the car." And have you ever felt adrenaline like come over you where you like start shaking? I'm like, oh. So he goes, "I'm here for the car." I was like, okay. So I'm literally shaking. I go grab my keys, and it was a Range Rover that I had, and I'm like shaking and stuff, and I'm like. I went to go outside, and my neighbors are mowing the lawn, and my other neighbor, "Hey, Sean, how's it going?" I got a tow truck in front of my house to come get my car, right? I'm sitting there shaking like this. I'm in my boxers, my hat on, and luckily I said, "Here, just give me a second." I called the lender, and I said, "Hey, can you give me till Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday to come up with whatever the money was on it, like a couple $1,000." And he said yes. So the guy went away. I was able to raise the money to pay for the stupid car. And that was the low point. And I can tell you the humiliation of walking out there and all my neighbors in a tow truck sitting out there.
It's public. Everyone knows.
Public. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, and just my wife's going, "What's going on? What's going on? Hey, what's going on?" I'm like, and my kids are like, "What, Daddy? What's going on?" I'm like, and they're in the adrenaline rush of just this fear of going through you is completely unexplainable. And from that point, I'm just like, I got to change.
Yeah,
I got to change.
Was that the wake up call?
Huh?
Was that the wake up call?
That was the wake up call. And then my dad, my father-in-law gave me that book.
Was quitting an option at that point?
Yeah, I thought about getting a job, going back and just, trying to, I didn't have any income, and I knew I did wholesaling, but I didn't have any money for marketing. So I was like, do I get a job and then go, and try to do this on the side, because I need money coming in, and what do I do? And I think giving that $20, reading that book, giving that $20, and then making that commitment to make the change that, I'm going to start waking up early. I'm going to start, kind of working on myself, that the tide kind of turned. And then that's when, this audit thing closed and we got the check in the mail, and it just kind of good things started to happen because I started to think about good things. I was thinking so much about what I lost and what happened to me, and woe is me. And I was feeling sorry for myself and all this stuff.
Victimology.
Victim, 100%. And then from that point, I was like, you know what? And my wife, she came in and she's like, go to work. Stop moping around here and get your ass to work. Go. And I'm like, when your wife says that, we have someone, because she believed in me and knew I could do it. I could do it once, I could do it again. And that's when I hand wrote letters, and I just started hustling, handwriting letters, knocking on doors if I had to, whatever I had to do to go get a deal here and a deal there and a deal here, and then kind of build it from there.
Well, and another huge lesson, right, is that you're really good at sourcing properties.
Yeah.
You're really good at sourcing properties. turning them around for profits.
Yeah.
And you take all this energy that you're really good at and you put it over here.
Yeah.
Right? Which we all do as entrepreneurs.
Yeah. It was a shiny object. I didn't know what I didn't know.
Yeah.
And it took me down a bad path. But you know what, though? I look back now, and Tony Robbins says something. It says, life happens for you and not to you.
Right.
Right. And you've heard that before, and I'm sure other people have heard that. But, that is a point where it truly happened for me. And I'm glad that happened because it got me on a path on how to turn my life. Otherwise, I probably would have kept drinking and probably would have kept doing this and doing that, and really not turning myself and my mentality around, and focusing on becoming a better man, right. For my wife and for my kids and for my family and for the community. And I probably would have never got into the education space, you know what I mean? And being able to even sit here with you, I wouldn't be here if the kind of that stuff didn't go through.
I wouldn't be here if you didn't it didn't work for you, right? Because like you were the one that inspired a lot of us. And another way I've always kind of said it was like either the universe happens to you, or you happen to the universe. Exactly. You get to decide.
Yes.
Which direction it goes.
Yes, and that's a powerful statement. And until something you can actually pin it on, because you're thinking the universe is so big, but you go back and look at an event that happens in your life, and you go, thank you for that event. And you're thankful for it, and you're grateful for that event, and you grow from that event instead of looking back at that event as going, that was the worst time of my life, and I was blah, 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 blah. You know what I mean? I'm grateful for that time that actually happened because it made me who I am today if that didn't go through.
Right.
So that was a critical, and I almost had to quit by default. And if it wasn't for my wife coming in and going, get to work, I probably would have taken the easy path or trying to go get a job and trying to do this on the side. And finally, I just buckled down. And here's the thing. You can handwrite letters from your kitchen table. You know what I mean? You can get people to call you. They'll call you and you can get a deal. You can negotiate. You can get a property under contract, and that can create revenue because there's always buyers for properties. I don't care what happens in the market. There's always buyers no matter what.
Absolutely. So that's the second time.
Second time.
Is there a third time?
There's a third time, and the third time's interesting because from that point, I'm good at creating, but you're really good at really understanding your numbers and your KPIs and your tracking and stuff like that. I was really never good at that. I wanted to be good at that, and I knew I had to be good at that, but I wasn't really myself good at. I had to do the tracking myself. So I read the book Traction, and I think that was a really business turning point for me because I had a small little. I had a buddy of mine who owned an investment company, I can't remember the name of the investment company, but. He was on one side of the office, on the other side with all these little executive suites that were empty. And I said, okay, well, let me rent one of your executive suites for $200. So I paid him $200 cash for this little executive suite. Yeah. Then I had to hire, right? And I hired Chelsea, which is my wife's niece, and so I had to pay another $200 for her office. So now I have $400 a month for two little offices. Then I hired someone else. So I get to the point where I'm paying like $1,500 a month, and I have these little executive suite offices, and I have an acquisition guy and a dispo guy, and Denise answering the phone, and Chelsea kind of doing some stuff. And I walk in the office on a Monday, and I go, "So how we doing?" Right? And they go, "Oh, good, yeah. I got a potential closing this week. I got a couple people I'm talking to, and I got an appointment later this afternoon, and we're doing great." Right? And I go back in my office, and I go, "Okay, we're doing great." And I, go on a couple appointments myself, and that was my business for years.
It worked
for years, years. I mean, I'm like years, and at the time I'm recording my initial stages of the podcast during this whole thing. Even when I sent the 100,000 mailers and we did $100,000 in a month, it was that time, no structure, none. I didn't know my KPIs. I didn't know my average deal size. I didn't know our cost per lead. I just threw stuff at the wall, and I hoped there was revenue at the end of the month.
Yeah.
For years, I ran Google I did Google AdWords before even Google AdWords anybody knew in the real estate space about Google AdWords, and did that for years and years, and I put everything in one account, right? And I wrote, hopefully there was money left at the end. Great. If it wasn't, you know what I mean? So two really very impactful books is Traction, right? Traction, great book. Talks about scorecards and your KPIs, and talks about hiring the right people for the right seats, and talks about your meetings to create the traction and stuff like that. So that was a critical thing that really made a difference, because we started holding Monday morning meetings. We started tracking the deals that were closed and how many our leads per deal and revenue and all that type of stuff. So we started really getting a grasp. I could look at a scorecard and go, wow, here's my business, right? And now I could look at where it was weak and where it was strong, and start putting emphasis on how to make things a little bit better, and working with the team and where to train them on sales, right? If their leads per deal is high, we got to teach them on sales and how to close. If our cost per lead's high, we got to work on getting a channel that's a lower cost per lead. So really it gave me a grasp on the business. Then the other book was Profit First, which I'm sure you read, right? Yeah. So Profit First, 2 books I highly recommend. Profit First shows you how to structure your bank accounts, right? So you have an income account, you have an operating account, you have a tax account, you have what's the other one? Profit account, right? So you have 4 different accounts, and you basically, the money comes in and you disperse them on a percentage basis, right? Yeah. So it's funny because I go to the bank and they go, what's TREI, percent, whatever, right? And they're like, oh, it's just, I still name the accounts exactly like he says. What I mean?
We've done the same. They're like, what the hell are these things?
Yeah, what are these accounts with these percentage numbers and stuff like that? So, but I've learned that Profit First, a great thing. And it's great when it comes to QuickBooks and accounting. It makes it a lot easier to do everything you're doing. So all my companies are set up that way. We're doing this, and we're growing, and we're local, right? So we're doing deals in Phoenix. Now, in Phoenix, we were dropping 100,000 mailers. I had a cold calling team. We're running pay-per-click advertising. We even did billboards at one point. We did this omni-channel marketing where we would try to surround the seller with everything, right? So we got to the point where our average cost per lead was about $550. Our average deal size was about $18,000, right? And our cost per deal, and I think our leads per deal was in the 20 range. So how much is that? It's like $10,000 for cost per deal, plus commissions, plus office, plus overhead. So this is 2019, not long ago, right?
No, not long ago.
And we would typically run at probably a 30 to 40% margin, right? Which is pretty good for a business, right?
It's 40% amazing. 30% is still rock solid.
Yeah. Now I got my neighbor owns a couple businesses. He owns a bar, and he owns a granite fabrication company. He runs one at an 18 to 20% margin, and he runs it super, super tight. He runs the other one at a 15% margin. Right?
Yeah, I mean, restaurants, I think, are if you're running at 6%, you're doing pretty good in restaurants.
Yeah, good. Yeah, because you have food costs, and his is a bar, so it's more alcohol driven.
Right.
He used to own a restaurant, and was at 6%. So he did the bar, and now he's at 15 to 20. But he did him over $1 million and brought home 150,000.
Right.
You know what I mean? So what's great about this business is you can have higher profit margins, but only if your cost per lead is in line, your leads per deal is in line, and your average deal size is in line. Those 3 KPIs are literally the lifeblood of your business. If you don't know them, you must know them. They're literally, that is your lifeblood. So
it's like knowing your blood pressure if it's out of whack.
Yeah.
If you don't know your blood pressure is out of whack, you can.
Yeah, but the thing is, if you know what's wrong, if you're sitting at 150 over 100, you know what I mean? You're dead. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if you're sitting at a cost per lead at 500, and you're sitting an average deal size at 18 and a leads per deal at 25, you're dead.
Yeah.
Right. So I came to the point, and it was 2000, and we were doing a lot of business, so we were doing a lot of revenue. But when we looked at every single month, the profit margin just came to where there are a couple months we were negative, or a couple months we may basically absolutely just break even, right? And I'm like, okay, this can't happen, right? Something's going to happen.
This is not a real business.
This is not, it's not working. And have you ever been to a point where what tweak can I make?
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, can I tweak the leads per deal? And I had, you know Raphael, right? Raphael, he was probably in here in a podcast, right?
Yeah.
He was my top sales guy, right? And it worked for me. He did over $1 million a year in revenue for the company. But average deal size was 18 grand, and his leads per deal was still 25, which was good, right? And, so we had other reps who are maybe at 27, 28. We'd work with them on sales training and what to say and how to close, but still it wasn't enough. I mean, we literally had to cut our cost per lead down to, $100, and we had to have our average deal size go to 30,000, and we had to have our leads per deal go under 20. And now we have a business, right? So I sat there and I'm like, what do I do? Listen, I've been in 2019, I was, doing it for a long time.
Yeah.
Right. I see we've done thousands of deals, made a lot of money doing the business. And I slowly saw the business coming down to a point where it was as the sirens were going off, like, what the heck? So I had to do something. I had to do something drastic, like seriously drastic. And I literally racked my brain for about 3 or 4 months in third quarter, right beginning of fourth quarter of 2019, right? And I'm sitting there crunching the numbers, cutting everything I could cut back, all the useless junk in the business to try to drive profitability. And if you've ever been in business and you're looking at numbers and stuff like that, and you're going, I felt like there's no place to squeeze. I'm trying to make my guys to get bigger spreads. Go get bigger spreads, but you have competition.
Yeah, everything's been maximized.
Everything's been maximized. So what do you do?
Well, I know the answer. So
yeah.
You go nationwide.
You become Steve, right? It's like, what do you do? What do you do? And I literally came to the point of, maybe I've just run my course. Maybe I just, and I want to give a shout out to Nick Perry for one thing, and I know he's been on the show, and because he was an actual student that actually then I became the student of his, and I reached out to him, and I said, tell me about this nationwide thing, right? And this was after me like 3 months of agonizing on what we could do and how we could change things and trying to work with my team and what we could maximize. And I finally got on the phone with Nick, so appreciate it, Nick. Thank you so much. And I asked him, I said, hey, tell me about your business. And he kind of started explaining what they did and the cost per lead and the leads per deal and the average deal size. And I'm like, really? And everything's over the phone? And and it's like, how did it done? It just didn't make sense. And so it was a real barrier, and it took me about a month to really wrap my head around that whole process, of what to do and how to do it. So at that time, now we're in, basically September of 2019. I said, you know what? I'm just we didn't have any process, any procedures, anything. Really haven't told my team, right? My team's all local. They're going on appointments. I have a whole sales team. And they're going on, 15 appointments a week, and it's a machine that we're doing, and we're bringing in contracts and doing deals, but we're not making money, right? We're done. So, how can I, teach? So I didn't feel congruent by what I was teaching. So I'm like, there's a disconnect there, and it was tough. It was like I had a big disconnect. So I'm like, what do I do? I just, I owned a bunch of. We bought an apartment at the end of 2019. So I had about 500 units in apartments. So financially was okay, and I could do whatever. So I'm like, maybe I'll just do another business, right? Maybe I'll go buy a restaurant and I'll do a bar. I have to worry about any of this stuff. Forget that. I'll be done. And maybe I'll do something else. And I started looking at some other businesses, some I could buy or do something like that. But I love real estate. You know what I mean? And I love teaching real estate. And I had followers and people all these years and stuff. And I'm like, again, my wife's like, get to work. And I'm just like, you know what? And I buckled down and I talked to Nick, and he kind of broke down their business model over, I think we had a Zoom call for about, maybe an hour, and kind of broke it down. And I was like, okay, I got it. So I did a PPC campaign national. I targeted every single state. I hit the United States.
All 50?
All 50. I hit the United States. When I went targeting on Google, nothing's excluded, hit the United States.
USA.
Right? USA. And I put it on. I basically created a website, national. We switched our CRM to FreedomSoft. Rob Swanson taught me to go to FreedomSoft. So I went to FreedomSoft, and we went national. And we started getting leads in from Pennsylvania and these small little hold-down towns in Ohio and like Macon, Georgia, and all these like. And my team now is like, what the heck's all? What's this? So literally. Everybody, so I did that for like September, October, the leads came in. Everybody quit except 3 people.
Wow.
Right? And so it's now December, end of November, December, right before Christmas. My whole team quits. Everyone's gone. They just start dropping like flies. They can't do it because we're floundering to try to figure out this business model.
Sure. And
we're contracting, but then canceling. And then we're contracting more and then canceling. We didn't know how to sell it. We didn't have, we get deals here. I had a buyer's list of 50, 60,000 people. We'd send an email out, text blast out. We'd sell in a second, right? It'd be just like that. It'd be like a machine. We clockwork. I had Eileen Brown, which is my title rep here, close all of our deals and stuff. And we had a machine that was going.
It was optimized.
It was completely optimized, but except the cost per lead started increasing. So that was, so the procedural side of what we did was optimized to the T. So we changed, and it's a complete different procedure nationally than locally.
Yeah.
So now I put this whole different procedure. Everyone's like, and quit, except 3 girls. 3 girls, right? And they stayed with me. I said, if you guys stay with me, stick with me, please. we're gonna crush it. Just trust me. And they stuck with me, and we got through November. We got through December. I hired a sales guy that came in at the end of December, started in January. We signed 40 contracts out of the gate between myself and him in January of 2020.
That's more than one a day.
Yeah, 40 contracts.
Yeah.
I was just slinging them. And it was amazing because these leads are coming in. They're all motivated. I was getting deals in Detroit. The people are practically giving it to us. We take it. Detroit, right? Right? So we're signing these contracts. We closed 1. We canceled 39. Closed 1. You know how much our revenue is for January of 2020?
$5,000?
$3,900. And a little hodunk town in Indiana. We found a buyer. He was a gym owner who's like, I'll take it.
Yeah.
We made $3,900 in January of 2020.
Yeah.
Now I'm sure people watching this are going, what? Right? But I had 3 people, and I had 4. I had this one other sales guy that probably went through your training and crushed it. But it was tough. We're struggling. Then February we did a little bit better. We sold like 2 or 3 or 4 more, and then we got some more contracts. And then guess what happened in March of 2020?
Little virus.
Yeah, exactly. So had that happen, and at the time the week the country shut down, I was in the process of interviewing my now COO. His name's Josh. Awesome guy, right? And he's used to making $400,000 a year. And he's used to running big sales teams all over the phone. Mm-hmm. I've been kind of, talking to him and kind of before this whole thing came along. And so what happened was I was the country, and he goes, well, what do you want to do? Do you want to hire me or not? Because I got some other, I'm like, you got other opportunities? The country shut down. So I had, again, blind faith. And I'm like, I hired him the week the country shut down. I taught him over Zoom, and I had my team. We had Zoom calls, literally huddles every day. And we went to work, and all the people that quit all called me back because they wanted their jobs back.
Right.
Because their jobs got screwed, right? And they were doing layoffs. And then we're crushing and now hiring. Mm-hmm. And we from there started building, and we went out and started doing deals and started doing 2 a month and 3 a month and 5 a month and 10 a month and 12 a month and started growing it from there. And we really honed in our processes and our procedures and what we were going to do. So there was that point in that December, in that November, December, when before I kind of talked to Nick of, do I really want to do this? Do I really want to kind of really dive in and take on this new challenge and this new business model and this new nationwide thing and this new wholesale thing and this new, completely new, because I'm good like you are in person. I want to meet you in person. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna look at the house and we're gonna close. So so that was my quitting point, and where I contemplated in in the car the first time. And it took me about maybe a couple 2-3 hours to get out of it, and then I contemplated in 2008. That was a long contemplation to am I going to quit? Here was am I going to quit? Was probably about maybe an hour, and I'm like, okay, I'm not going to quit. What are you talking about? Yeah, nuts. Then you get pissed, and it's like I'm going to just crush it, right? And I'm going to go after it, right? And attack on a mission. So I went after it and just started, and we started hiring people, started going. Then 2021 happened. And what happened in 2021, at the latter part of December of 2021, there was the writing on the wall. Mm-hmm. Housing started to decline, right? It started to, literally started to come off. Housing permits started to come off. And during this time, because of what happened in 2008, things happened for you and not to you. What happened in 2008, I really educated myself on what asset classes did well during the crash, and how could I know a crash is going to happen again, right? So in 2021, latter part of 2021, I saw kind of the writing on the wall. I knew something was up. The real estate market was frothy. The houses were parabolic. Stock market was parabolic. It was like, what, and I starting to see these indicators. Inventory started to increase. So we had these signs of these things that are happening. So that's when we really looked hard at of understanding what happened in 2008 to cash buyers, 2007 in cash buyers. Cash buyers exited the market for a better part of 2007 and 2008. Mm-hmm. And the people that were buying were bottom feeders looking for ridiculous deals. I remember doing deals in 2008 in Phoenix, Arizona, houses that were 220. I was contracting for 10 to 15,000 and selling for 30,000. That were 200,000, right? In Maryville, right? Yeah. I remember I contracted a house today that's probably worth 400 mm-hmm. for $8,000. I think I sold it for 30 or something like that. Yeah, that's what happened. So I saw the writing on the wall with all the indicators and what was happening, and I'm like, we've got to learn. And I told my team, I said, we're going to list every property on the MLS. This was kind of before anyone was doing it. And I'm like, we're going to sell every one of our properties to retail buyers. Mm-hmm. I said, so we figured out that model. A lot of help with that. Shout out to Corey Boatwright. He put what's called the RBP program together and kind of showed me how, and actually walked me through a transaction. And then, literally, we started listing all the properties on the MLS, selling to retail buyers, and getting paid through the RBP process, and being 100% transparent to the seller on exactly what we're doing and what our value add is mm-hmm. in the transaction. Right. And then we did that, and we trained our whole team. Tell the seller we're here to make a profit. Tell the seller we're going to list the property. Tell the seller you're going to see a profit on the HUD. Tell the seller that, listen, we're going to handle all the repairs if needed. You don't have to take care of. We're like a concierge service. We'll take care of everything. You don't have to deal with anything, and you're going to get this price, right? So we were completely transparent. Some people said no. Some people said yes. We still signed a bunch of contracts. And then in 2022, I do one-on-one coaching. I kind of moved away from that, but my phone was blowing up for people that did the fix and flip model, mm-hmm. Or did the contract buy and wholesale model, were calling me because they were literally, their business was dead. right? Because they couldn't do it anymore because their cash buyers weren't buying. They couldn't just stick a crappy house on the market anymore.
Right.
And sell it at top price and be able to sell and be able to do it like an open door model, right? That's why Open Door lost $1.9 billion. That's why, Zillow shut down their home buying section, lost $180 billion, So, and OfferPad stock went down, 92%, So, is the reason of that decline that happened in 2020 because of these indicators. So we pivoted. So now today, we sell everything on the MLS, and we sell 90% of our deals, 99% of our deals to retail buyers.
Yeah.
Right. And, we have our team. I've got 5 sales rep. We have a COO. We have a couple dispo team members, and I have an office, over on the west side right there. And my team pretty much runs the entire operation. I do a once a week meeting for about 90 minutes, our level 10 meeting there, and go through all of our KPIs and numbers and dashboards. And, and they have great months, they have sucky months, just like, sales.
Every sales team.
Every sales team. But we're running at a 45% profit margin, which is great. And our cost per lead is under 100, it's about $85. Our leads per deal is it's like between 20. I have one sales rep that's the leads per deal at 7.75 leads per deal.
Wow.
Right. I got another sales rep at 12 leads per deal. I got another one that's like 25. We're working on her. But the average deal size is around 20 leads per deal. So at $85 cost per lead, leads per deal 20, right? Average deal size is over $31,000, right? So you put those numbers together, it spells about a 45% profit margin.
Yeah.
Which is money in this business. Now, we have one of the guys in our mastermind, his name's Jacob out of Atlanta. He has his entire sales team out of Egypt, dispo team, Egypt, and he pays them a 1% commission and pays them, I don't know, $5 an hour, right, out of Egypt.
Yeah.
And they crush, right? And at the mastermind you spoke at, right, he was there. He was the guy right in front, loved your stuff. But he told me at the mastermind you spoke at, that he just broke $1 million,
wow,
in business, and he's running at a 74% profit margin. Disgusting. Yeah, disgusting. I mean, guys, hello, right? Hello. What business do you know on the planet? One, that you can run at 45%, right? Yeah. Number 2, you can run at 74% margin. That means you do $1 million, you bring 740. So he'll, he's doing good.
I don't know any legal businesses there.
Yeah. So, we're in a great business. And I believe right now we're in a great market for what we do because there's more distressed sellers coming into the market. And what we do is we help for our mission is helping sellers out of their real estate problems. We get the vagrants that live in the house. We get the tenants that aren't paying, that aren't responding. We get the property that's vacant, but it's an out-of-state owner and they don't want to fix the property. We get, the foreclosure situations that are dealing. We got one right now. We're closed on. It's like that. So we get all these. We get these inherited properties where you have, the siblings. We have title probates. We have to figure out title problems. So we take all the difficult deals and we turn those into revenue. And I remember my team is like, oh, we got another deal. Blah, blah. It's like that's where we make money.
Yeah.
Right. How can you make $60,000 on a deal, right? And just, the seller wants to sell it below market. You sign it, it's vacant. You put it on the market, you sell it, you make 60 grand. Mm-hmm. There's no, now those happen, right? They'll come along, but where's the value add?
Not a lot of value add.
There's not a lot of value add.
So, no, very, very few. So I want to, before we go into what's going on with the market,
right,
and the future of our industry, because I think those are 2 things I definitely want to talk about. I want to take just a quick detour because you have your Flip to Freedom events.
Yeah.
Right? I've attended your Flip to Freedom events. And then we've talked about before, like I just blatantly just stole your website and all your AdWords, right? Running my own PPC campaign.
Yeah.
A long, long time ago because before
it works.
It works, right? Before you were talking about it, I was like, I got to figure this out. I was like, there's a guy in town that does this. I'm going to just copy his website.
Right.
Right?
Works.
It works. So I remember I was at an event, one of your Flip to Freedom events, and you're like, yeah, so on my event days, I turn off my PPC campaigns because you had a bloody day with your PPC.
Yeah.
Can we talk about that real quick? You talk about adversity.
That's funny.
Things you don't
You remember that.
things you don't anticipate, but we get punched in the gut all day, right?
Yeah.
All the time. You want to talk about that real quick? Because
Well, it's interesting. We do these big Flip to Freedom events. Last one we did was, I think it was 2019. We had 300 or 400 people that come to the events, and people do a lot bigger events. But we have. I mean, so I'd have go on AdWords and I'd show people the campaigns, and I'd show people the websites, and show people how to do it and what the campaigns look like and the structure, and give them some of the keywords and stuff, and pretty much give everything away because. One thing I have learned is if you have an abundance mentality, there is no scarcity, right? But then what happened was everyone would go click on our ads, and our cost per lead would go up like dramatically, and our lead, stuff like that. So, but now I pause the campaign before and just tell them, say, guys, do me a favor. Just do me a favor. Just go look at other people. Find Steve Trang, you can find him and just click on all of his stuff,
Do you remember how much it cost you that one particular day?
Yeah, I can't remember the number. But I mean, I think we're spending, I don't know, $2,000 a day. And I think we spent the $2,000 or $3,000 a day doing it. And I think they're all, just bum leads.
So it wasn't too bad. Well, it was only a couple grand.
Yeah.
So
wasn't that bad.
I saw you posting some stuff earlier this week about Zillow, right? And how they're doing 1% financing.
Yep.
And I have not done my research on this.
Mm-hmm.
So what is the Zillow 1% financing deal?
Okay. So, and Zillow came out several months ago. I think it was like in June or July, where they're coming out with this 1% loan, right? And it's interesting because now Rocket Mortgage and several other lenders offer this 1% loan. And I think they released it quietly, and now it's started to get on like names like CNBC reported on it, and someone else reported on it. But you'll start seeing that, in my opinion, become more mainstream, where you'll see these different type of loan options. Because I just read this morning that home affordability right now is it the worst it's ever been in 40 years.
Really?
40 years. So home affordability is the worst it's ever been in 40 years. So I was, 13 years old. 40 years ago, it's 13.
Yeah.
Right? Now, I'm not saying the housing was the same price 40 years ago, but the affordability was as bad as in 40 years.
What you would pay per month on your mortgage versus how much you make.
Right, exactly.
This ratio is completely off whack.
Completely out of whack. So if you look at the Fed comes out with a home affordability chart, and it's interesting because it's bright orange if it's bad. And in 2007, that number, the affordability index, got down to 70, which is low. A higher is above 100, like 110 is incredibly affordable. 70 or below is really bad. So we're right now, I think, at like 65, right? Affordability, which is considered a worse than 40 years. It's terrible. So what impacts affordability is interest rates, of course, and home prices. So we still have elevated home prices, and we have elevated now interest rates. And the Fed, they just came back out in Jackson Hole, said they're still going to be aggressive on their 2% target. So could they raise? Could they pause again? If you look at the Fed Watcher tool, that gives like a prediction of what the Fed's going to do here coming up in 24, 23 days, that they're basically stating it's about a 60-40 type of thing. They don't know. The market doesn't know if they're going to raise or not raise. But I think they're on this path of continue to raise because they want to crash the market. They want affordability to come out. Even Fed Powell said, we're going to make housing affordable, right? So how do you make housing affordable? If you have to raise interest rates,
bring the prices down.
The prices have to come down. So something will crack, and I think, and obviously I'm not a prognosticator, but or a futurist, but I think we're going to have a black swan event that's going to come up here probably in the next 6 to 8 months. Some sort of black swan something. We have an election year, and we all know about, we don't want to get into politics and all that stuff. We got an election year that's happening. I think there's a black swan that's going to happen here in the next probably 6 months or so that's going to rock the markets. Now, we look at bank closures, right? In 2008, there's $348 billion of bank foreclosures, right, that happened. Here, we've had 3 to the tune of 548, right? So we're already more on 3 banks, and those banks now are basically signaling red, like ding, 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 we're red, because they have to increase their I think their limits of basically, like, their limits of cash they have on hand to cover their risk profiles. You know what I mean? So if you have something like that, these banks, these small banks aren't going to survive. And I think they're trying to do a consolidation in the banks and get rid of the small banks, right? And then just gravitate toward Wells Fargo, Chase, and the big ones.
Make the banks that are too big to fail bigger.
Yeah, make the banks that are too big to fail bigger. I mean, they're the ones that they bailed out with the TARP back in 2008, right?
Yeah.
So there's that going on, and then there's now this, talks of this new Aries thing, variant that's coming out that could essentially, they're talking about a new jab that's coming out that they're going to mandate for everybody. Yeah. So there is some sort of black swan event that's going to happen. It's either in the financial sector or in the health sector that's going to impact. Now, the interesting thing is, in the timeline that you look at, the inverted yield curve is when the 2-year yield is higher than the 10-year yield, meaning if you invest in something typically long-term, you should expect a higher yield.
Good.
But the 2-year yield is inverted now, meaning you'll make more money on a short term than you will a long term. So in that case, when it inverts, it's a predictor of recessions. So if you look at that, it happened in August of 2022. So it typically takes about anywhere from 15 to 18 months for it to hit the labor markets, right? So people ask, there's low inventory. What about the inventory? We have this inventory, blah, 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 all this inventory, right? I post on there and it goes, oh, the housing market's fine. There's no inventory, right? It's coming. Inventory is coming. And they wonder, where's the inventory going to come? Well, where did the inventory come in 2007?
Foreclosures.
Foreclosures, right? But why did a property foreclose?
Well, people lost their jobs.
And people lost their jobs through unemployment, right? So if you look at the timeline of what's happening, August, and if you fast forward 15 to 18 months, right? And it's August to August, we're in August right now, so that's 12 months. So we got 3 more months before we're going to start to see an uptick in unemployment, or another 5 months after that. So we're seeing end of this year to be first quarter, second quarter of 2024, where we're going to start to see an uptick in this unemployment. Now, when you have unemployment, people go, no one's going to sell their houses because they have low rates. Why would they sell their house?
They can't make their payments. Unemployment.
Yeah. Now, you look at credit card debt, hit over $1 trillion, right? You hit savings rates of Americans, hit the lowest it's been, pre-pandemic levels of the savings levels. So you look at those two things, it's divergent, by like this, of debt here, down here, you lose a job. I don't care if you have a 2.8% mortgage. If you lose your job and you can't pay, the repo market, right? You're looking at cars being repoed, right? It's like shocking what's happening right now in the repo market. So you look at all these indicators and you're saying something's coming. Something's coming. Now, if you're a real estate wholesaler, you're good.
Right.
You're good. It's like we're in the best time as a real estate wholesaler, right? So if you're doing fix and flip, just be cautious. Make sure you buy low and you sell low, right? If you're doing buy and hold, I don't know if I do the Burr method right now, right? I think I'd offset on the Burr method. Would I do subject twos? Subject twos could be good with equity, but just know there might be a rent decrease. There will be rents that will come down. And if you stress test it and you do get a 2.3% and you have a stress test on it at like a 20% on your rents, then buy it. Right. Then buy it. I'm still looking at self-storage that with seller financing that we can stress test, with the rents on the property and make sure it works. So I'm not saying not buy. I'm not saying suspend what you're doing. What I'm saying is just, look at it and stress. What does a stress test mean? Stress test means, put it under a 20% rent reduction and see what that looks like. Put it under a 20, 30% equity position and see what that looks like. And if you do that and this thing still pencils,
you're good.
Buy it.
Yeah, it's just like we see a lot with a lot of people right now freaking out about Airbnbs.
Yeah.
Well, it's because you only had one strategy.
Yeah.
It was Airbnb.
Airbnb, right.
Right. If it didn't work in any other strategies, was it the right purchase?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You didn't stress test it.
You didn't stress test it. You didn't stress test it what it could be. Now, if it pencils as a normal monthly rental at, as a year-long rental or a 6-month rental with a 20% stress test, and you can Airbnb it, well, now you have your downside covered and you have your upside there.
Right.
And you're all good. So that's why I'm kind of looking at any asset purchase right now. I've kind of been on the sidelines for probably a couple years now, where I see all the on social, and I honestly, me too. I get kind of FOMO. Friends of mine that I know are buying this apartment and doing this thing and raising this and doing that and doing this, and so I do get FOMO, and I'm like, oh man, maybe I should do this and that, and then I'm like, what is Warren Buffett doing? You know what Warren Buffett's doing?
I don't know what he's doing.
Warren Buffett is sitting on the largest cash position he has ever had. Now, how does Warren Buffett invest? Warren Buffett invests by waiting till there's blood in the streets, just like he did in 2008, right? He made a loan to Goldman Sachs that was literally 100% guaranteed, backed by the government, I think a 6 or 7% return on it right there, and his loan was guaranteed by the government, and he made a guaranteed 6%, and he made upside if they did well.
Can't lose.
And he gave them, I don't know how many billions of dollars.
Could not lose.
Yeah, could not lose, right? So those opportunities will come, and and I know Ray Dalio says, they say, oh, cash is trash, right? But it's not. You listen to some other people, cash is king. Right.
Well,
now,
and I think you're talking about now. You're looking around and experiencing a little bit of FOMO. You know, like you and I were in real estate. You started a little earlier, but you and I went through 2007, Lehman Brothers, and TARP, and all these other things. And I looked around when I surveyed the landscape. Looking around, I was like, oh, everyone that's doing a lot of flips got crushed.
Yeah.
Right. So you look at it, it's like,
Montalbano Homes, gone.
Right.
This is a home builder. They're out of Chicago. Huge.
Yeah.
They built thousands of houses in Phoenix. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Small home builders, spec home builders.
All these builders.
Gone.
So we look around, it's like, yeah, it sucks. Like when we look at other people doing these things, because for the last few years, I've looked around, it's like Airbnb is like, man, like people are killing Airbnbs.
Yeah.
Maybe I should do it. It's like, no, because when the winds change, that's not quite the same.
Yeah.
So
I agree, and I think that I think everybody, and the one thing social media has really put I think social media is bad. I think we need to use social media to promote our education and stuff like that. But to let social media use you, because you don't really feel good. I don't care who you are, even me, even you, the success you've had and what you created and things like that. Unless you're Grant Cardone, then you don't feel bad looking on social media because you pretty much conquered everybody else on the planet, right? But me, I look on there and I'm like, boy, man, I got to get my game up. I got to do this and I should be doing that. And I suck and I got to do this. And, and you still have that. And I'm like, I just got to, get off it. And, I see my 20-year-old daughter and stuff like that. And it's doing the same thing to her. And I'm like, just listen, use it for what it is. Don't let it use you, and don't feel bad and try to top other people. Run your own race.
Yeah.
It's like, you just got to run your own race. God has given you your certain gifts and dreams and thing, not to, yes, you can, if you want to post it, you can post it, but just run your own race.
Yeah. Play your game. It's hard. It's hard to play your game.
Yeah, it is. Just keep your head down and do the things you're going to do,
So you and I, we love wholesaling, right? Giving us a lot. What's going to happen to wholesaling, you think, in the next 5 to 10 years?
Yes. So I've been thinking a lot about that because I'm always, my career has been in wholesaling, building a business, and then teaching, right? Wholesaling. So, in looking at of what's going on in the regulation side of the market is interesting, meaning we have to play cleaner than we ever had before. And we were kind of living in the wild, wild west.
Well, we were in unknown territory for the longest time.
Yeah. Like this wild, wild, wild west back in, we were in a small little niche that nobody really knew about. We didn't really disrupt the real estate industry. I mean, the realtor industry, because there wasn't a lot of us. Now there is a lot of us because of you and I, right? And other people out there now that, influencers are talking about, this niche. So now, there's laws that have come out in certain things in like Oklahoma and Illinois and Philadelphia and Georgia and stuff like that. So you're just going to be a little bit careful on what you do. Now, could that law propagate to federal? Possibly. Could it go state by state, where each state by state just starts, releasing things? Yes, but it will be a harder game to play, a game that still can be played, but you will have to close on your deal. You'll have to be the buyer. You'll have to close on your deal, and you have to be able to get it done. Now, interesting, the novations / RBP model, where you're getting paid off the HUD on a recorded, essentially a lien release, that I haven't seen anything about. So that could be a surviving methodology that could happen. If anyone's not doing it, I'd highly recommend looking into doing that type of model. But the bottom line is that either A, you close on it, right, and you're the buyer, you close on it, and then you just stick it on the MLS and sell it. There's nothing wrong with that. You can do that all day long, twice on Sunday. Within the certain, marketing laws in Georgia and, and stuff like that. But if you're the buyer and you're going to offer someone cash and you can close on it, it's your deal and stuff like that. You don't have to, you don't have to market a property you don't own. You don't have to, stuff like that. Then, you'll be fine. So what are two ways that could, that you can continue to operate or prepare for? One is either A, be well capitalized, or B, two, have a lender that you can work with to close and resell, right? And have a lender in your pocket that could start doing those deals. Or two, be able to really understand the Novation RBP model where you can start doing those. Those two things, I think you become essentially resilient, even if Novations and RBP goes away at some point, than doing just the buy and sell type of thing. Yeah. There's no reason why you just can't buy it or sell it.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
So you look at, the number one lobbying firm, right? For the longest time, I haven't checked recently, the number one lobbying firm, the NRA, National Rifle Association, right? Second Amendment, all about the Second Amendment, right? That's number one. Number two is the National Association of Realtors.
Right.
Yeah. That's the second largest lobbying arm in the country, right? And I'm a licensed realtor. So every year, they just take out $35 out of my dues, goes right into the lobby.
Wow.
And there's 1 million plus realtors.
Wow.
That's $35 million every single year going to the coffers of the National Association of Realtors.
Yep. They can just start paying off politicians to get their ways on certain
They're
things.
very well funded, right? Yep. And so what you're talking about with Oklahoma, I'm not sure exactly what drove it in Oklahoma. Illinois, you had to be licensed. Philadelphia was driven by one of the most successful realtors in Philadelphia. Shocker.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so there's this thing that's happening. And when I started this podcast over 5 years ago, I started the first 10 episodes. It was wholesale, realtor, right? Because I believe that there's no reason why wholesalers should dislike realtors and realtors should dislike wholesalers.
Yeah.
There's no reason for it.
Yeah.
But it exists, right?
It does, yeah.
And so I believe that in 5 years, if you haven't figured out how to close on every single deal, you're going to be in trouble. Right. And you don't need 5 years. You can figure this out in 5 months. You can figure this out in 2 months.
Yeah.
Right. Go get funding.
Yeah.
Go create a relationship with someone who's got money.
Right.
Right. We already know how to find motivated homeowners. It's not that hard to find people with money.
Right.
So,
well, the interesting thing is, think about this though. Think of the opportunity. Yeah, I mean, but think about the opportunity. So what if you were a forward thinker and you built those relationships today and something does come on down the line, you know, you know, literally all the wholesalers would be gone and there'd be a handful of standing that would get all the deals because that market's not going away.
Right.
Distressed properties is not going away.
Yeah.
And you still can do your Google AdWords, but your cost per lead's not $85, it's $18 or it's 18 cents. You know what I mean? It's like, and now your profit margins, and now instead of a leads per deal at 31, I mean, average deal size. So you're having an average deal size of 50, 60 grand because you're buying on it, closing on it, getting the best deal and selling it.
Yeah.
You might have a capital cost in there, but still
There'd be less competition.
less competition.
Right. So really, and this is the thing that I've always said about regulation, like if it happens, who wins? Not the homeowner, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Because they're going to get offered less because there's less competition.
There's less competition.
And
right?
we have to buy it deeper for the numbers to work.
Right.
Homeowner's not the one that's going to win.
Yeah, because they still have to sell.
Right.
They still need to sell.
Yeah.
Right. It's not that they want to sell. You know what I mean? I'm just going to listen. They're in a situation, they have an impending event, and they have to sell.
Right. And so with regulation in place, there's less competition. Our cost per deal goes up, capitalization costs. So it's coming out of someone's pocket,
Right. Right.
and it's the homeowner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So The Big Short,
Mm-hmm.
Michael Burry, you see what he just did?
He shorted the S&P.
Yeah.
He,
and
he,
the
put,
Qs.
he took like 85% or he took some stupid.
92% of his portfolio. Now he did it with derivatives. He did it with he bought puts and calls. Now, puts and calls, you can put less down and control more.
Mm-hmm.
So it could have been the way he structured it a little bit different. But that being
he is
said, it's still
putting his money.
$1.6 billion position essentially they're controlling, betting the market's going down, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean that's a big position. He got clobbered yesterday. Because the market went up 5 points, he probably just took a massive hit, but he doesn't care, right? So here's my question to you: is he in Big Short, basically had this big monster play,
Mm-hmm.
and he had a conviction that the housing market was going to crash, right? And his play was to he bought insurance swaps on default debt or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So Bill Ackman, you know who Bill Ackman is? He's a hedge fund guy,
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Mhm.
So he had a big play in February of 2009, and he essentially bought puts on the S&P 500 to the tune of $26 million and turned it into 1.6,
Yeah, he
2.6
crushed
billion.
it.
Crushed
Yeah.
it, right? Because he knew something. He heard the thing that was coming out that was going to crash the market, and it did. So here's my question to you. That being said, we know something's coming. What's the big play?
What's the big play?
And I ask everybody.
What's the big play right now?
The big play. What's the big play? What is your big play? What's your Bill Ackman? What's your Michael Burry play?
Oh, I mean, the problem with options is they still cost money.
Yeah.
Right? There might be leverage, but you still have to put a significant amount, and that the option reduces time. It's not a permanent option.
Yeah. Like an ice cube.
Yeah, so I know something's going to happen, but I don't know when it's going to happen.
Right.
That's the problem.
Yep.
Right? If we could time it, it'd be great.
Right.
I'm fully confident the market's going to go down. The stock market's going to go down. Real estate, I don't know. It just doesn't make sense. If you talk to me, like all of us in 2020, right? In 2020, when COVID happened, right? I call it the toilet paper crisis of 2020, right?
Yep.
When that happened, I was ecstatic, right? Because I was like, okay, I survived 2009. I know what this looks like. I've got money ready to go.
Yeah, let's go.
I've got relationships. I got money in the bank, right? I know how to source properties. Let's freaking go.
Uh-huh.
It did not crash.
Yeah, it went straight up.
It went straight up.
Yeah, because all the foreclosures, they just kicked the can down the road, right?
Yeah, all the forbearances and this.
I thought the exact same thing.
So if I were to bet it all then, I would have gotten crushed.
Well, actually, you probably would have done well because the market did go up 2020, 2021 to later 2022.
But I'm saying like where I was going to start acquiring assets from my portfolio.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you would have had to buy and then sell within a year to 2 years. And then,
Yeah, right. So I'm looking, because I was looking forward to like 20, 30% price corrections and
Yeah.
buy and keep, right?
Yeah.
Just buy and hold.
Stick in there.
Yeah. So right now, I mean, I know the stock market's going to go down. I know there's going to be a lot of pain because you can't keep raising the Fed rate like this and have no pain. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's per historically, it's job market is 15 to 18 months before you start seeing basically a loss in jobs.
But like every report says, like, okay, we're expecting this much job loss. Oh, we did not lose that many jobs. Okay, this month for sure we're going to have this much.
It came out this morning.
Yeah,
it did go down, but the market went up.
Yeah,
see, isn't it bad news? In the market, the stock market goes up, but there was negative today.
Yeah.
But not a lot, little. You know what I mean? Even GDP went down today.
Yeah. So something's got to give. The problem is with options and shorts and this and that is there's a window.
Right.
And I don't know when it's going to happen. I just know it's going to happen. So I guess if the big play, if there was going to be a big play, is to put, 10% of your cash shorting the market. But you can't short sell the market because you still have to. It's a long-term play, right? Or it expires. You can't do a long-term short.
Yeah. So Michael Burry basically he bought puts on the QQQs, which is Nasdaq, and the SPY, which is 500. But he did what's called leaps, right? So leaps are long-term equity positions, right? So a leap is something that's a year out, right? So the time decay doesn't happen; it happens over a year time frame. So if nothing happens in a year,
he's in trouble.
He can do it, but he also can sell options against his position and collect premium if it doesn't happen. So there's a lot of cool things you can do with options, and I like trading. Trading's fun, and I do it with just risk capital, whatever. And
the longest I can short is a year.
Oh no, you can do long. You can I can buy a put option on the SPY right now, like 2 or 3 years out.
Okay,
right, and just hold on to it and just go through the fluctuations.
I would say 18 months. I would say if I was going to do 18 months, it'd be if I was going to go hard, it'd be putting money in that we're gonna crash.
Yeah, but would you put 92% of your portfolio?
No, I would never put 92% any. I love real estate.
He did that. He did that in Michael Burry did it in 2000 prior to 2008. Would you put 26 million like Bill Ackman did right before like the COVID crash? So it's got to be a convicted position. And it can't be a tester position, right? So, and I'm not talking about the stock market. I'm talking about more about real estate. But with I've been thinking a lot about the big play because there is going to be a big play that's happening. Otherwise, Warren Buffett wouldn't be sitting on his largest cash position ever in history. Why would he be doing that?
He could just be waiting for a correction to come in.
Right, I know. So he's waiting for the black swan. He's waiting for something to potentially happen. So I think we have to be patient. And it's hard to be patient when you flip on social media.
Especially
and
when you're a driver personality.
I'm doing this and buying that and doing this.
There's nothing to talk about. Hey, it's Monday and I'm still doing nothing.
Yeah, I'm still doing nothing, right? It's crazy, but it's but here's the thing I look at. If I'm wrong, that's okay. Then I just buy then.
Right.
You know what I mean? If I'm wrong and I load up on a bunch of property and real estate and go do, some pull out some debt on some Class C apartment complexes, and raise capital for and do all that stuff, and I'm wrong, I'm killed. You know what I mean? So, and all the investors with me are killed. I've been there, done that. I was wrong on land in 2008, and I went all in on land, right? At the wrong time. Right at 2008. So I look at it now where I'm like, it's okay to be patient, but look at what the big play, what is the big play that can be? And I do think, and it has increased 22% year over year, foreclosures, and I that's where I got started in foreclosures. I believe that could be a big play. A big play meaning where, for guys that are, doing houses and they're used to house and stuff, that they still will have 2 to 3% mortgages. And if you get them before they hit the market and become inventory on the market, you can get a loan for 2 to 3%. You can give them $3,000 or $4,000, $5,000 leave. You can, reinstate their loan for whatever, $10, $15, $20,000. And now you have a house that you can do, and you can turn around and lease option it, for a long term, and you can get cash flow. Now, here's the thing is that you can do that where you get money. Literally, you can do it for break even, because if you lease with an option to purchase, you can get down payment up front. Mm-hmm. You can offset some of your cost up front. It doesn't take a lot of capital to build a large portfolio. I did it.
You did it. Yeah.
I did it when you don't have a huge, because you're circulating, and then you can sell property and you get a chunk, and you can take that and you can literally build $120-30 million portfolio of properties. And here's the thing is that I looked back historically of when the pivot happened in the real estate market where inventory decreased, right? And if you look back when the market kind of comes back, you know when that time is? Have you ever looked at the chart?
I've looked at the chart.
And then kind of overlay it with quantitative easing or quantitative tightening. So you overlay the real estate market with quantitative easing. You overlay the stock market with quantitative easing. Well, quantitative easing is when the Fed comes in and pumps money in the market, right? And if you pump money in the market, all asset classes rise. Gold, stocks, currencies, everything rises.
There's just too much money out there.
You pump money in the market. So right now they're quantitative tightening. If you look at the Fed balance sheet, they're basically trimming their balance sheet right now.
They're sucking the cash out of the market.
They're sucking the cash out of the market. So we're seeing stocks that are kind of hovering right there. But I mean, not stocks, but you see real estate kind of hovering right there. But it's going to have to correct. It's going to have to get in line at some point, and it could happen when these foreclosures happen. But I think there's a big opportunity. What if you built 50 houses, 100 houses, of doing that same thing where you could do it with limited capital and build a huge portfolio? At the time when the Fed pivots, they start the quantitative easing, essentially the bottom. If you look at housing starts and housing permits pulled, guess when that number started to tick up?
Quantitative
easing, right? So think about if that's the bottom and that's our signal, because you have to wait a signal before you get in. You wait for the signal, and who knows when that could be. They could start, they'll quantitative ease when there's blood in the streets, right? And they'll go, oh my gosh, we got to come in, we got to save everybody in quantitative ease. So when they do that, then we can turn around and start buying some really smoking deals and build a portfolio and then ride that. And here's the thing, most people that are probably watching this, maybe or maybe not, but got involved in real estate after post crash. Right.
Oh yeah.
Most of the people I've talked to, I was in a room and I think there's a couple hundred people there, and I asked a question: how many people got in real estate post crash, like after 2008? 99% of the room. There was one guy in the entire room of like 200 people that raised his hand. I mean, so the thing to learn from it is that, in my opinion, my humble opinion, I'm not a prognosticator or whatever, but do your own research. Look at when the Fed pivots quantitative ease. Look at what happens to the marketplace. Look at what happens to inventory. Look at what happens to all those technical indicators that we can look at and see what happens to that. And imagine if you bought 10, 15, 20, 100 houses then, right? You can ride it up as the inventory decreases, prices increases. Quantitative easing, they do lower interest rates. You either can refinance them out at lower rates, still cash flow, but you do have low debt on it because you took over the loan, or you can sell them into strength and you buy into weakness, right? You buy when everybody's fearful and you sell when everybody's, at the height of the market.
Yeah.
So, in 2021, that's when you sell, right? Because everyone's euphoric and they want to sell. So, and here's the other interesting fact. If you look historically of properties being sold, if the 2005 properties being sold on the market, there was 7 million. 2021, guess what the number was? 7 million, right? Same, right? So that's the high is 7 million, right? Average is about 6 million. Guess what the low is? So 2008, how many houses do you think sold in 2008? If 7 is the high, average is, close, really close, good. 4.14 million. 4.14 million houses sold, and the worst housing crash that you and I know.
Right.
So you know what that tells us? Us as wholesalers, we have people, especially for selling to retail buyers, we can sell. Guess what's the difference between 4 million, 6 million, and 7 million? What that difference is? Cash buyers.
Yeah. Well, and I was a realtor at this time.
Yeah.
Right. And so I would show houses, and there'd be lines out the door for the houses, and people would be like, "Why are there so many people looking to buy this house? This is a housing crash.
Yeah.
Why are so many people looking to buy?" It's like, well, if you have a good house priced right, it sells.
Right. That's what I'm saying. So 4.14 million houses sold at the worst housing crash in U.S. history.
Mm-hmm.
And that means us as real estate wholesalers, if we understand how to sell retail and we can get our deals at wholesale, sell them at retail, there is a ton of this market share that we can sell into. And all you got to do is a couple hundred a year.
Mm-hmm.
At $30,000, you're talking $6 million.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good living at 45% margin.
Yeah.
That's good.
Oh, it's great. It's incredible. Yeah. And I think, like, you know, for those of you guys that are watching, this might sound like, what are these guys talking about? It's like, this is what, when you get burned, right? Like, you look around, because I had a lot of time to survey the landscape, right? Like,
Yeah.
all these people getting divorced, right? Because when money's good, everyone's happy.
Yep.
Money's not good, all the marriages are getting tested.
Yep. It is. Yeah.
Yeah. So I got to survey the landscape, see, like, you know, what the wealthy look like. Here's how the wealthy operate. Here's how the smart operators look. And then you got everyone else who's reactive.
Right.
We got to see that too.
Yeah. So you want to be proactive and you want to look and ask yourself the question, what is the big play? And then formulate the big play. You know what I mean? The other thing I think the big play is two asset classes that crushed it during the 2008 crash was student housing and mini storage. I owned 760 student housing units. You know what I mean? That's why I've kind of built that portfolio. And I really see a huge opportunity in storage. The interesting thing about storage is multifamily is about 70 to 80% institutional, right? So it's about 20% small mom and pop, right? When it comes to mini storage, it's about 60, 70% mom and pop and about 30, 40% institutional. So I think there's a huge opportunity in storage. The other interesting thing about storage, you can have the ability to do a forced appreciation on it quicker because rents come up every month versus come up every 6 to 12 months. So there, and the facelifts you can do on it. So you can buy a Class C in a Class A neighborhood, be able to do forced appreciation on it quick and either just hang on to it, or you could, you know, and REITs are coming in and buying. So if you can build a portfolio of those, I think that's a big deal.
Yeah, I think the other one too, now that we're talking about it, is I think multifamily. I think if you can raise enough capital, I think it would not be unreasonable to see a 30, 40% correction in multifamily.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that you can position yourself. We know one of my best friends is family friends with, cannot remember his name right now. They have a theater down in downtown Phoenix. Anyway, they bought this entire complex, right, off 72nd and Shea, right? That's Scottsdale Road, right? So the northeast corner, they bought the entire complex for $300,000, right? In the 80s.
Oh, I was
Right?
going to say, like, what?
Like in the 80s.
Yeah.
That's worth quite a bit more,
Oh, yeah. Huge. Yeah, crazy money.
right? The entire northeast corner, like
Holy cow.
we're talking like the supermarket, like all the stores, all the entire retail thing, that entire corner, right?
$300,000.
So,
Well, I mean, it's like Bob Parsons
mhm.
bought the complex that I'm in,
Mhm.
right? And the builder built it for $30 million. It was valued at 40, 50 million in 2005. And they have a Zip Center in there. They have Bodega, the pizza place. They have Biscuits, which is a breakfast joint in there. They have coffee shops and other stuff like that. So it's a pretty big center. So he bought it at the auction cash for $8 million. Now it's worth about $100 million. Easy. You know what I mean? So it's like those, I think, become the big plays. I think that the things we really got to do is be friendly with capital. So I've been building relationships with capital, right? You know, and hoarding capital, you know, and basically building relationships with capital. Because when those opportunities come, you know, there's going to be incredible opportunities to be able to do something that would normally take years to do. You can, you know, years and years and years and years to do, to acquire and force appreciate and get that value that can do in, you know, like 12 to 18 months. You know what I mean? Like, to be fast, super fast.
There's something that I learned from a mentor, right? Like, if you have deals, right, you should be able to sell them. You should be able to sell them, right? if you have money, deals will find you.
Yeah.
Deals will find you if you have money.
Right.
Yeah.
And the thing is, if you know marketing and what we do as a real estate wholesaler, you can find the deals, right? You can direct mail them, right? You can PPC them, you can cold call them. The deals are out there. And as the market continues to erode, smart people that have asset classes like those, they see the writing on the wall. They're not stupid,
No.
right? So they're going, maybe it's a time. I'm 80 years old. I own this storage unit now. It's 100,000 square foot. And maybe I should just exit. And they don't want to put their capital 1031 it into another building, right? So they'd rather sell or carry at a good rate, stress test the heck out of it, right? And if the numbers still pencil, then you can pull the trigger.
Absolutely.
And I look at it like that. And I think if we look at stuff like that, then we still not inhibiting the opportunity, but we're also capitalizing on, I think, the opportunity of the narrative in the market right now.
Yeah. Got it. So we're coming up past an hour and a half. So,
oh, wow.
Actually, I think we're coming up on 2 hours.
You talk too much.
I'm sorry. My apologies. So I want to wrap up. I want you to think about something you want to leave all the listeners with. Guys, if you got value today, I mean, this is such an honor for myself to be able to sit down with Sean. If you have value today, please subscribe. Don't keep us a secret. The more you subscribe, the more people will actually see this. And then we do have our sales leadership event coming up in just a few weeks. So if you guys are interested in learning how to get your salespeople to work as hard as you, the business owner, text leaders to 33777.
Nice.
What last thoughts would you like to leave all the listeners with?
I think probably, as a real estate, as an entrepreneur itself, you are the visionary and also the implementer at the same time. So you have kind of them both. So being a visionary, you have to be crystal clear on where you're going to go. Because if you are not crystal clear on the direction you're going to go and you can't convey it, then you can't attract people to want to get in your boat. Do you see what I'm saying? Now, what happens is you also have to be an implementer to a degree where you're going to have to get in, you're going to have to row yourself. At times, you're going to have to get in and row. But there will be rough waters, right? You're going to come into dark clouds. You're going to have rough waters. And that's when you have to have faith, right? You have to have faith that you are doing the right thing and you're moving forward and you are grounded and you have belief in yourself, in your ability, in God, whatever you want to believe in. And if you have that faith and you continue forward and you are relentless about never giving up, then success becomes inevitable, right? I had 3 opportunities and probably more over my career to give up, right? And if I would have given up on the first one, I would never be here today. If I would have given up on the second time, I would have never been here today. You know what I mean? And even if I probably given up on my third time, I would have never been here today. So It's an honor for me to be here, to watch your shows and what you produce and the content you produce. And if you realize you're going to be in the storm and you have that faith and you're strong in your vision and your goal and what you want to accomplish, then you'll handle the storm and you'll do it in a way where you might have an exterior, or almost like an exterior type of circumstances and turmoil, and it might be dark and clouds, but inside you're going to be poised. Inside you're going to be calm. You're going to be grateful. You're going to be happy, even through the tough times. If you can operate in that manner, it's a great thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And in having that element of faith, of knowing that things happen for you and not to you, and it is a kind universe. It is kind. And then you will end up on the other side and everything will turn out okay. Might suck for a little bit. It'll be okay.
It will be okay.
Right?
It always
People
works
get
out.
all worked up and tension and they can't sleep and they stress and you know what I mean? Take a deep breath. Have some faith. I mean, it's going to be okay. Now, for me, I give it to God. Give it to God, put it in his hands. And you know what? He's never let me down.
Yeah, absolutely. If someone wants to get hold of you, what's the best way to do that?
You can just hit me at flip the number 2. Actually, just go to Instagram. Look up Sean Terry, Flip to Freedom. Just message me.
Awesome. Cool. Thank you so much. It's been an absolute honor.
Great job. Isn't he the best interviewer? Great, best looking guy.
Wouldn't go that far. I like the first part.
Steve Trang. Jump on the Steve Trang. We real estate disruptors.